Hello, thank you for the intro. So we're a studio based between Paris and Beirut, and we're focused on mainly designs that are contextual and that are aware of the surroundings. I'd like to start this this discussion with this photo. Actually, it's a bit dark. I know it's not very. I would have liked to start with something a bit more positive, but this is where we're at now in Beirut. I think that most of you know that we had a huge explosion that destroyed the city, and this was after a year of intense economical crisis and COVID and lockdowns. So it really made us think of our approach to everything, actually. And for us architects and designers, like we're responsible of rebuilding the city, of building people's homes. So I'm going to talk about actually how this year affected us actually psychologically and mentally, and how it affected our approach to design. And I'm going to go through projects that I worked on with my studio to explain how we adapted, how we try to adapt to this new situation. So I'm showing you pictures I took from Électricité du Liban, the building, the EDL building in Beirut, which was one of the most impacted buildings. And this is the street of Jemaisi. And this is inside the building from the 13th floor, looking towards the city. And you can see how most of the buildings, the traditional Lebanese buildings, are completely destroyed. So let me go back and start with COVID and how it actually made us realize how our homes are really important, and how having a pleasant environment is crucial, especially nowadays. So I'm showing you actually my house in Beirut. And the reason I'm showing this is to show you that, like, for me personally, I travel a lot. I spend a lot of time traveling on the plane. So I wanted to have, you know, a kind of bubble in Beirut where I can feel detached from the city, from the noise, from the pollution. And actually it saved me in a way when we were in a lockdown, because I was really comfortable in my house. So the house is located in Art Deco building from the 30s. And when I found the place, it was completely destroyed. It was abandoned for 30 years. It was literally raining inside the apartment. So I tried to build a shelter. And because it was a really old building, I tried to work really on all the systems for it to be really comfortable. And I can show you this is obviously the bathroom. And I was talking about how the houses should really be well equipped. So yeah, this is the kitchen. And the outdoor spaces are really important, especially when you're in the middle of a city. Greenery and plants, like the relationship between the indoor and the outdoor is really important, especially if you're going to be locked inside your place for a while. So yeah, those elements are important. Next is the context. So we were asked to work on a villa in Baalbek in 2017. And for those who don't know Baalbek, it's a city in Lebanon that has one of the biggest Roman temples that was ever built, which is the Temple of Jupiter. And there is another temple next to it called the Temple of Bacchus. And here, actually, when I first visited the site, I noticed how, you know, those huge temples were built, but they were still in harmony with nature, and they weren't like imposing themselves. And this is what I tried to achieve while designing the villa. And nature also was really pristine. It was a huge site that wasn't touched for nearly like hundreds of years. So I also wanted to preserve the site as much as possible and to preserve the rocks and the plants and the trees. So this is the villa. It's called Villa Shams because it's located in Baalbek, and Baalbek is the city of the sun. So the way I approached this villa is I wanted to tell a story through its facade, and I wanted it to be musical because Baalbek for me represents music because it's a city of festivals. It's the city of the Roman temples where a lot of partying used to happen. So my thesis, actually, I based my design on the thesis I did in university. Xenak is an architect who explored the relationships between music and architecture. And he actually designed a facade with Le Corbusier in La Tourette in France, where he used the proportions of musical partitions to design a facade. And I really like this concept of having, divisions and subdivisions. And this is how I came up with the elevation of Villa Shams that you can see on the last drawing. And yeah, so this is a sketch of the villa, and it's also reminiscent of the Roman temples that aren't very far. And also to stay, in the contextual design, we really wanted for the villa to blend in with the environment. So we used a lot of local materials. As you can see, it's built out of, it's like one shell of concrete, and the concrete was mixed with the soil from the excavation. This is why it has this brownish reddish tint that is really specific from this area in Lebanon that is very arid. And you can also notice how we try to preserve as much as possible the rocks and the cacti and the olive trees. So actually the garden was almost designed by nature. We didn't touch anything. We just tried to maneuver around everything. And on the right, you can see how the pool also intersects rocks that are coming inside the water. Those are the interiors. You can also see like the relationship with nature, how it changes. So sometimes you have rocks blocking the view, sometimes it's completely open, and sometimes nature comes inside the house. So you can see on the right how you have a planted courtyard with a skylight above it. And you can also notice how everything, literally everything is made out of this brownish earthy concrete. And as for the floors, outside and inside, we use terrazzo. The terrazzo is a mix of concrete and aggregates and like small stones. And in this case, we tried to use existing stones from the site. They're also very earthy and reddish. And on the right, you can see that we even used a whole rock formation as a wall inside the bathroom. So when you're in the bathtub or in the shower, you can really feel that you're close to nature, and you can literally touch the rocks that they have been treated, of course, for bugs, etc. So this is the view at night. You can notice how it's really blending in the environment. And how, like, on the left side, you have the bedrooms, so they're a bit remote, they're behind, and they're hidden with, with nature, and the living space is in the center. And on the right, you have the swimming pool that is heated and that is partially covered with the shell, with the structure. Next, I'd like to talk about handling heritage. Actually, it's also part of the context. COVID has made us aware of the context and what preceded us and what came before us. And on this project, I had to work on an existing house in Beit Mere in the mountains, which was also like abandoned for 40 years, and it was occupied by squatters, so it was completely destroyed, and the original furniture was ruined. So those are pictures of the owners, of the family that owned the house. And this is the house as it is today. You can see how like the windows are barricaded, and you can see that some of the furniture is still existing while nature is taking over. Like you can see that no one ever tried to enter the premises for a while. So it was really exciting for me to work on this project, because on one side I had this amazing existing house that I had to renovate, but I had also I needed to also integrate new technologies and new comforts, etc. So it was an interesting exercise, and I tried as much as possible to work with local artisans and use local materials, especially after the blast in Beirut. We realized that we were relying on imported materials only and following blindly, you know, the international standards of building, and we completely disregarded what our predecessors did. You know, if I come back, you can see that the windows are like relatively small compared to the stones and to the walls, and this is not the case in Beirut. Like Beirut is built completely out of glass, so all the facades are glazed. And this is what did the most damage after the blast. It was the glass that flew all over. So I think that there are some things that we can learn from the architects who came before us. So the idea of this is called, the house is called Villa Nadia. So the idea here was to make 3 additions to the house. 1 tree house that could be used as a pavilion, and 1 glass house in the back that gives on a private garden. And there is also a spa underground inside the cross vaults. We're going to see it in a bit. So this is like the entrance of the house. You can see how you have different gardens with different types of privacy. You have the gardens that are more exposed to the entrance, and others that are more hidden towards the back. And you can also start to see the tree house on the upper right side. Sorry. So this is the main hall of the house. So as I told you, we tried to work a lot with local resources and to reconnect with artisans that are today really, really old, but we managed, you know, to work with them to restore all the doors, the carpentry and the windows, etc., and to even restore the existing chandeliers and some of the couches and furniture. And this is the dining room, and you can also see on the left the Jardin d'Hiver, which is a glass box that's privately sitting on the back garden. And we also try to use a lot of earthy materials, like to try and keep a balance between the marble floors, you know, and the timber ceilings and the cane matting on the walls. And of course, nature is present everywhere. It reminds you of how nature started to take over the property in the first place. And this is the back garden. It's a botanical garden. It has like more than 100 different species of plants and trees. And you can see that the glass house is also inspired by the old Lebanese floral motifs that were used in the 3 arched vaults, etc. So we try to develop a pattern that is a combination of actually many eras, like from the early 1900s until the 50s, the Art Deco, 30s and 50s actually. This is the tree house. It's perched like on the upper level. It's the only upper floor that there is on the property, and it's literally hanging between pine trees. So from the space, you can see the trunks of the pines all around you. and it's entirely built out of pine. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, everything. And you can see that the windows are pivoting and sliding, so you can literally feel that you're outside when you're sitting there. And we consciously wanted to use materials that make you think of nature. So there's this deep green velvet and the bouclette, the wool fabric on the left on the two armchairs. And on the lower floor, you have a library. Of course, everything is new. Everything that you see is new. We only kept the existing old timber roof that we restored. The floor is made out of terracotta. There is a Moroccan feel in this room because a lot of the furniture comes from Morocco. And on the upper floor, you have the bedroom that is completely open to the pines and the garden. And lastly, you have the spa in the underground vaults. Back in the days, traditional Lebanese houses used to have cross vaults used usually as storage or stables, even for horses. And in that case, we wanted to rehabilitate them and use them as a private spa. So the idea here was to use an earthy material. I wanted the space to feel like a cave. I wanted users to feel cocooned. So it's like a single material that is used to plaster the walls and the floor. It's called tadelakt. It's a type of Moroccan plaster, and it's a bit shiny, it's a bit reflective. So the idea here was to have this whole cave with the same material, and then the jacuzzi was like a jam that was plugged in the center of the spa, and that reflected greenish tints on the walls, and a lot of flickering candles to complement, the mood. And this is the sauna and the showers. And that's it. It was quick. I tried to make it really quick. So if you guys have questions, I'm ready to take them.
Yes, sure. Thank you for this interesting lecture. So there's one question we have had so far about if there's a relation between the architecture and design you do and the music that you usually hear or play around you to give you these vibes.
Yes, of course. Like for me, it's definitely fields that are overlapping. When I'm writing music, I often feel that I'm not inspired anymore. So I try to go back to architecture and vice versa. So I do a lot of back and forth between the two fields.
Okay. And we have also one last question. So how do you balance your creativity between architecture and music? And what is the architectural design, design process like?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part of the question.
What is your architectural design process like?
Oh, okay, sorry. For me, any design process is a bit similar. When you have to create something from scratch, actually you never can really start from scratch because there is always, constraints and a site or context. But for me, it's always like a blank piece of paper and a pen. Even when I'm trying to write a song, I have to set my intentions first and to find, the right idea and the concept. And then I start brainstorming and producing something. So, honestly, I'm not really, I can't hide that inspiration is not a constant thing. You need to be able to take breaks. You need to be able to clear your mind, especially nowadays, because this year has been really a very intense year for all of us, I think. So for us creative people, it's very tough to be 100% inspired and 100% creative all the time. So it's good to take breaks. And for me, taking breaks is switching between music and architecture and changing fields.
Okay, thank you for this enthusiastic lecture.
Thank you very much.